Hello and welcome everyone to my YouTube channel Philosophy Simplified. In today's lectures, we are going to mapping out the history of Western philosophy, from pre-Socratic periods to the contemporary philosophy. So this lectures is titled as an overview of Western philosophy. So this lecture is basically designed for those who either lack clarity or have no idea how vast the Western philosophy is, how it passes through the different development stages, which philosopher belong to which stage of development, which philosopher belong to which school. I promise you in the end of lectures you have in your mind the complete structure of Western philosophy from the very pre-Socratic periods to the contemporary trends. So let's begin. So roughly the history of Western philosophy is classified into four development stages or four different stages. So the classification is necessary to understand something deeply, clearly. As we know, philosophy do not remain same. So it keeps on changing with the evolution of thoughts, consciousness. Each period of philosophy we deals with different kinds of problems. So let's begin. History of philosophy is basically classified into four stages. The first one is ancient philosophy, which is popularly known as Greek philosophy, because Western philosophy begins in Greek. So ancient philosophy begins around 600 BC and ends up around 500 AD. Medieval or Christian philosophy, that is second stage of philosophy, begins around 600 AD and ends around 1500 AD. In simple word, we can say that it begins around 6th century BC and ends around 15th century. Medieval philosophy is popularly known as Christian philosophy. The third stage is modern Western philosophy. It begins around 16th century and ends around 19th century. Fourth and the final stage is contemporary philosophy, that begins around 19th century and continuing. Let's begin with the first stage, that is ancient or Greek philosophy. As we know that Western philosophy is divided into four stages, that is ancient, medieval, modern and contemporary. In the similar manners, ancient or Greek philosophy is further classified into four stages, that is pre-Socratic, Socratic periods, Plato and Aristotle and Neoplatonism. That the major cause behind these classifications is the differences in methodology as well as philosophical problems. Let's begin with the first stage, pre-Socratic philosophy. So philosophy begins here. Before that, there is no philosophy. If there was no philosophy, then what was there? A system called Greek mythology. Irrational systems to satisfy the quest of human consciousness. Philosophy came as a reaction against these systems called Greek mythology, and pre-Socratic philosophers were the first ones who start speaking against them. As we know that it begins around 6th century BC. So the central questions that they are dealing with the problem of change, the constant changing nature of the phenomena, inspired the pre-Socratic philosophers to propose different opinions. That opinions are considered as philosophical because they are grounded in rationality, reasoning. This is the list of major pre-Socratic philosophers. The first one is Thales, who proposed that water is the fundamental stuffs. And second one, Anaximander, then Anaximenes, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, Parmenides, Zeno, Empedocles, Anaxagoras, Leucippus and Democritus. So these philosophers belong to the different philosophical schools, belong to the one philosophical tradition, that is pre-Socratic philosophy. But each philosopher has their own different opinions. Say that we see different philosophical approaches like problem of being, problem of becomings, problem of numbers, problem of mental stuff in between mind and matters, terms as the fundamental unit of reality. Contributions in the philosophy leads philosophy to at the zenith, a complete height. Their opinions were further used by the philosophers like Plato and Aristotle to propose their own theories. Socratic philosophers basically focused on the natural problems. They are considered as naturalistic philosophers because they are dealing with the phenomenal world only. They do not surpass the phenomena. Okay? Pre-Socratic philosophy is also known as naturalistic philosophy. The second stage in the development of ancient philosophy is Socratic periods. Founding figure of this stage is Socrates himself, popularly known as the father of ethics, not considered as the father of philosophy, as Thales was considered as the first philosopher, not as a father of philosophy. Because philosophy includes metaphysics, epistemology, axiology, but if we look at the pre-Socratic philosophers, they are dealing either one problems or another problems. They are not dealing with all problems. So that is why they are not considered as the father of philosophy. Same is the case with Socrates. Socrates never deals with metaphysical or epistemological problems. So they are strictly dealing with ethical problem. Why it is popularly said that he bring philosophy from the heaven to the earth. So Socrates claim that or point out that it is not important to know that whether the phenomenal world is composed of water, air, fire, or any number of atoms. More important is to know what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong, what is friendship, what is a relationship. So he focused more on values. Is not the knowledge of water, fire, or airs that makes our life going well. Rather, knowledge of values. This is the only reason he was considered as the father of ethics, because he introduced the concept of values in philosophy. Value-based study in philosophy. After Socrates, a systematic philosophy begins with Plato and Aristotle. So they were the first philosophers who deals with all kind of philosophical problems like metaphysical problems, epistemological problems, axiological problems. Plato was famous for his theory of forms, the famous metaphysical theory. And Aristotle was also famous for his metaphysical theory, that is theory of form and matters. And he developed this theory by criticizing his own master, that is Plato. Plato was a student of Socrates and Aristotle was a student of Plato. And Aristotle criticized his own masters, criticized the theory of his own master, that is theory of forms, and proposed the theory of form and matter. After Plato and Aristotle's, ancient philosophy start declining, and the last stage of ancient philosophy is Neoplatonism. This theory was proposed by Plotinus. He was a Christian philosopher, but he was greatly inspired by the Platonic ideas. So he merged Platonic ideas with Christianity. With the end of Neoplatonism, here philosophy go dormant for a certain period of times, and ancient philosophy declined here. Second most important development stage in philosophy is medieval philosophy, or popularly known as Christian philosophy. Why it was called as Christian philosophy? Because the major contributor belongs to the Christianity. They are basically schoolmen, that is father of the church. Famous Christian philosophers are like Einstein, Anselm, Thomas Aquinas. On the lighter note, sometimes it is called as the darker stage of philosophy because much not happens during that times. Still, there are very interesting problems like problem of evil or ontological arguments regarding the existence of God or proof for the existence of gods, are the famous concept that we usually studies in the medieval philosophy. Philosophy is also known as religious philosophy because they are dealing with the problems that are questioned in religions. They are philosophizing religions for the intellectual minds. Because what happens, it is a little bit difficult for intellectual mind to accept the religions because it is grounded in faiths and beliefs, or it revolve around the faith and beliefs, and for an intellectual mind it is difficult to cope with that. So that is why Christian philosophers try their bit rationalizing the faith and beliefs so that it is acceptable to all the intellectual minds as well. So if we look at the different philosophical theories proposed by medieval thinkers, we find that all the problems are concerning religions: God, world, soul, and life after death, problem of sin, etc. So after Plato and Aristotle, till 16th century, there was no systematic philosophy at all. In between ancient and modern philosophy comes the Hellenistic and medieval philosophy, also known as Christian philosophy. This period was grounded in faith and belief and had no strong foundation in religion. That is why sometime this period of philosophy was also in lighter note called as dark period of philosophy. So the third most important development stage in philosophy is modern periods. So the very modernization in philosophy does not comes from nowhere. If we look at the 15th 16th centuries, but we find that there is a kind of intellectual revolutions in every aspect of existence, whether it's a social, political, cultural, economics, literature, or engineering, marvelous. There is a strong revolutions, industrial revolutions, or intellectual revolutions everywhere in every aspect of existence. That influence was also seen in the philosophy. Before 16th century, but we see that every institution is controlled by the church, whether it's a politics, whether it's a religion, whether it's a education, whether it's a government, everything is controlled by church, and church revolve around the faith and beliefs. The quick revolution, the intellectual revolution that came in 15th 16th century uprooted the Christianity completely. A new wave of intellect or regions prevail in different aspects of existence. This is how modern Western philosophy came into existence. But who was the father of modern Western philosophy? It was Rene Descartes, who himself was a mathematician and greatly inspired by the philosophical problems. He wants the same kind of certainty in philosophy that we usually found in mathematics. So he started working on it and proposed that reason should be the primary source of knowledge or authentic source of knowledge. And he gave utmost importance to the mind in the formation of knowledge. And his school was popularly known as rationalisms. The Spinoza and Leibniz follows the footprint of Rene Descartes. And on the other hand, the rapid development in sciences inspired many philosophers to start countering against rationalisms, and instead of reasons they start proposing that experience should be the primary source of knowledge. And the founder of empiricism was John Locke, who proposed that it is not reason, it is experience which is the primary source of knowledge. And they start giving importance to sense experience or sensory organs as the reliable source of knowledge or the authentic source of knowledge. Thinkers like David Hume and Berkeley walk on the footprint of John Locke. And most important turn in modern Western philosophy comes with Kant, who start criticizing both rationalism and empiricism and propose that it is neither reason nor experience has the capability to produce authentic knowledge or right knowledge. So he synthesized both rationalism and empiricism. His view was popularly known as a priorism. Other important philosophers in modern time periods is like Hegel, who proposed the concept of absolute idealism in philosophy and proposed that reality is a historical process. So after that, contemporary philosophy begins and various philosophical trends begins in philosophy. In contemporary philosophy, we find pragmatism, existentialism, analytic philosophy, philosophy of mind, philosophy of religions, social philosophy, political philosophy. So in 19th and 20th century, various new trends begins in philosophy like existentialism. Popular existential thinkers are like Jean-Paul Sartre, Friedrich Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, Bevier, and others. Ideology of existentialism is if we are aware of our own existence completely or have deep penetrating knowledge of oneself, the number of philosophical problems automatically dissolves. So the root cause of the conflict in the world is because we lack knowledge of self. And to solve all those problems, a human being should have the deeper knowledge of himself. Only then we are able to understand the problems, or problem will dissolve automatically. So the another important trend is phenomenology, also known as science of experience. Important thinker in phenomenology is Husserl. So they focused more on content of consciousness and not content itself. That is why it is called as a science of experience, where instead of objects, we examine the object of experience, not object itself. Important trend in contemporary philosophy is pragmatism. Important thinker of pragmatism is William James, John Dewey, etc. And pragmatism is a practical philosophy. According to them, only those things have relevance who has practical relevance, practical utility. If something is not practically important, it has no relevance in philosophy. Even if there is a religious belief and it has practical utility, then it is relevant. According to them, practical utility is the criteria of philosophy. Another trend in contemporary philosophy is logical positivism. And one of the most important logical positivists was A.J. Ayer, who declared that metaphysics is meaningless. According to him, only those things are considered as meaningful who passed either one of the tests. Either a thing is principally verifiable or it must be true by definitions. Example, a statement like God exists. It is neither true by definitions and nor principally verifiable. So this metaphysical statement is completely meaningless. Logical positivism has very close resemblance with analytic philosophy, another important contemporary trend in philosophy. Very important philosophers like Wittgenstein, Hegel, Russell, Moore, Quine, Sons. So analytic philosophy is basically a philosophy where we are trying to analyze the language. This is why it is called as linguistic philosophy. According to them, philosophical problem arises because of the inappropriate use of language. So all we have to do is to examine the language to find the problem as well as solution to the philosophical problem. To them, linguistic analysis is the only way to solve philosophical problems. There are a number of contemporary philosophies like social philosophy, political philosophy, philosophy of mind, philosophy of religion, etc., which contribute a lot in the development of philosophy. Like in philosophy of minds, we discuss about the difference between brain and mind. This distinction between brain and minds. This is all about contemporary philosophy. So let's conclude this lecture's overview of Western philosophy. So this Western philosophy begins with the pre-Socratic philosophers that belong to the ancient philosophy. Is second stage is medieval philosophy, third stage is modern philosophy, and fourth stage is contemporary philosophy. And in a nutshell, it can be said that if we look back at the beginning of Greek philosophy, we find that it begins with the naturalistic problems. What if we look at philosophy now? It covers all the aspects of life and the world, including phenomenal and nominal problems. Stay tuned, we are going to upload all these lectures. Thanks for watching.